All right, as promised, Doug Haller has put down his laptop because it's steaming smoke. He has not taken a nap. He actually looked pretty good given the magnitude of the story. So let's back up on this. It's all in The Athletic. You can see what Doug has put out. It is in some other outlets as well. Pete Thamel's done very good work on this too, and Bruce Feldman has done terrific work. I mean, the three of you have been digging around on this story. When did you first feel like I've got something here I need to write about?
Gosh, the days run together, but let's see, today's Thursday. Maybe earlier this week, Sunday, Monday, around this time, we started. We had a lot of things out there, and the problem is there were like 9 different things we were hearing, and it's like prioritizing, and like a couple things I'm like, okay, that's not believable, that's not worth my time. But the one thing that we kept coming back to were the recruits on campus during the COVID period. And I'll be honest, Brad, when that first, when we first started hearing that, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Arizona State just had their season torpedoed by COVID. They played 4 games, couldn't do anything for a month because of a COVID outbreak. Why would they, jeopardize all of that and have recruits? But as we kept digging around, it seems to be the case. We'll see if it was, 20 over 3 weeks, or if it was a lot more over 3 months. That's the big question. I think that's ultimately what's going to be the weight of this investigation.
Doug Haller with us with The Athletic. You can check out his content on the Arizona State story and the scandal. To you, what is the most damning piece of information that you've been able to get a hold of so far?
Probably Herm Edwards' potential involvement. And, I say potential and everything because these are still allegations at this point. But, I think anyone who's been around the program knows that Herm kind of takes a CEO approach. He was hired for that. And, he coaches the coaches. He's on the field working with the defensive backs. But he also delegates a lot of power. He gives his assistant coaches a lot of power, particularly with recruiting. Antonio Pierce has been the force behind Arizona State recruiting, as you know, for the last 3 or 4 years. So it was wondering, it was like, is this something that Antonio Pierce is doing on his own? As well as I do, that they hired a bunch of young assistants. Maybe it was a case that, they invited somebody, hey, there's nothing going on around here. If you want to stop by, we can show you around. Maybe it was a case of the young guys not fully understanding the rules that were in place, even though they do have to take tests before they can go out and recruit. But, as things have unfolded, it does appear that Herm Edwards was aware of this. And that's probably been the most surprising thing. And again, these are just allegations, but based on the reporting of what we've done at The Athletic and what other people have done, it does seem like he was aware of it.
Okay. Antonio Pierce, to me, and I wrote about this, it was surprising as an understatement that he was already being pushed and promoted as the next coach and all of that. And I was hearing from coaches on the high school and college front 1.5, 2 years ago that, hey, everything's not right at ASU, just so you know. And I'm not in that day-to-day space. So I'm really not that surprised by what has been reported so far by yourself, the dossier that reportedly is there, former assistant coaches that left bitter, former assistant coaches that were in the National Football League that felt like they were going to be given a great opportunity here. You have a great former Sun Devil in Derek Hagan who's no longer here. You have a lot of former coaches and people with ties to the university and to Herm that would be bitter, Doug, from my view. Are you sensing that in your reporting?
Yeah, there are some people who I've talked with who are bitter. And, I try to figure out from the get-go, Brad, if someone has an axe to grind.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that what they're telling you is not the truth, but it does maybe slant their recollection of things or their view of things. So, you keep that in mind. To be honest, the people I've talked to, it's really difficult current staffers, former staffers, inside the football offices, inside the athletic department, sources tied to recruiting. It's hard to get people to say anything negative about Herm Edwards because he's such a good guy.
Right.
The other part of it, that hasn't been the case with some other people. I'll leave it at that. And the other thing is, it's really hard to kind of separate fact from fiction in situations like this is, no one likes to gossip more than college football coaches, especially when another school, a rival school, a conference school is in the crosshairs. So, it's really hard to kind of figure out, like, okay, are you piling on? Is this an example of, hey, this happened, and then you dig a little bit and it's like, well, I heard this from this person who heard it from this person who may have seen it on a message board. So that part's been really difficult. Some of the things that came out, and I believe in the Yahoo story, are things that, we had heard earlier. We just didn't have the sourcing where I felt comfortable behind it.
Which is fine. That's part of the process, I think.
It's really frustrating though when someone else has it.
I get that. I get that. The dossier part of it. When people are trying to compare this to Sean Miller and the U of A, it's like, no, they have the pictures. They have the receipts. They have everything dropped off at Arizona State's front door, where U of A, where's the tape?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, am I right on that?
Without question. And let me backtrack on your previous question about what's the most surprising thing. That is the most surprising thing, is the fact that, whoever has that information, and I don't know if it will ever be revealed who delivered that to compliance. As you can imagine, I'm sure you've heard names, I've heard names, but the fact that's coming from inside the building, and that shows you where the culture may be. You don't see often, as someone, college football's kind of eating their own, so to speak, I guess, eating its own. But that is the most surprising thing, that this is that kind of detailed information.
I think when Kevin Mawai put up a Bible verse earlier this week that was in Shawshank Redemption on his Twitter feed, I was like, wow, okay. There's just things that you just haven't seen in former coaches that would go to such length to show their disdain for the university. And I think towards Antonio Pierce, if we're cutting through all this, Doug, it's a lot of it's directed towards Antonio, jealousy or not. The question that I have is, I think it's very fair that fans are asking, what happens next? From my view, given Michael Crow's strong stance, and I remember Todd Graham telling me when he was hired that Michael Crow told me to my face that if I ever cheated, I would be fired. And Todd had no reason to tell me that other than just straight up. Now that was Todd, $14.5 million later, by the way. Do you think that this will cost Herm his job?
That's hard to answer, just because we don't know what the investigation is going to reveal. And like I said, it could be not as bad as it appears, that maybe people embellished a little bit in what they have said or seen. Herm Edwards is 67 years old. He has said before, this is his last job. He's not looking to go out and coach in the NFL again or anywhere else. If I will say this, if the heat continues to rise, I would be surprised if it gets that far with him. I just don't think I would not be. I don't think he's at a point in his life that he would be willing to go through a lot of stuff.
I agree. I think he'd sail off. My own opinion.
Yeah, that's a popular opinion. We'll have to see how far it goes. And the unpredictability is NCAA investigations, as we have seen in this state, can take years. Right. I mean, so it could be a situation where Herm kind of coaches his contract and retires when he always has meant to retire, and we may not have resolution on this. It's one of those things that the NCAA is just, you can't predict that part of it. But we're on day 2 of this. So I don't think we've gotten to the depths of what might possibly come up. So we'll have to see. And I think, it could take a number of turns. So we'll have to see, but it's a bad look for the program, no doubt. Any rule breaking is, but also Herm had tested positive for COVID. And at every point, when he talked to us in the media, he urged people to take it seriously. It's just not a good look to show that the program that you work for wasn't taking it seriously either. Having people on campus who had traveled, during this difficult time, it's just a bad look.
Okay, Antonio Pierce, what happens with him? Is he on the sideline on opening night against Southern Utah?
I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I don't know. Someone asked me how much will the university shield those two, because they're ASU football. They're the two most powerful people in ASU football. Obviously the head coach, but Antonio Pierce is right behind him. That will be interesting to see. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know, because I just don't know how quickly we'll find any sort of resolution. And I assume that the NCAA will, reach out to the recruits who were allegedly on campus during this time, who some are at different universities. That may take a while, and that'll be interesting as well, because as others have pointed out, they won't have any loyalty to ASU to maybe hide the truth. So right. That'll be a big part of this as well.
I've seen you talk with Michael Crow one-on-one. You do great work. Michael Crow enough. What do you believe? Have you spoken with him yet? And what do you believe is going through his head on all of this?
I've not spoken with Michael Crow. My guess would probably be frustration. Michael's been very vocal throughout my time covering ASU that, we are not going to be a football factory, that we're not going to pay incredible salaries like others to, try to steer towards success. He's pretty much said that we're going to do it the right way. And obviously Michael Crow has great loyalty in Ray Anderson, and Ray Anderson has great loyalty to Herm Edwards. Yep. In some ways, I think Ray Anderson and Herm Edwards are kind of tied to each other. I think they, from the moment he hired him, I think their futures were kind of brought together. So, I'm sure there have been some meetings these past few days about what's going on, and at this point, I think that when you're starting from a point where there's supposedly receipts and all this documentation, that it's probably best, you don't want to get caught, lying and then have to pay the price for that later. So, Arizona State's best position, we might see something like Arizona, a self-imposed penalty, no postseason. We could see that from Arizona State if it gets to that point, but it's going to be an interesting couple of months, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I'll let you get some back at it, because I know you're jamming. Thanks, man. Appreciate the time. Stay well.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
There's Doug Haller, and we're back with more. You can check out all of his content at The Athletic. We're back with more after this timeout.